Good day to you all out there. Thanks for joining our Lunch and Learn on Schoology and Atomic Jolt tools. Quick introduction about us as an organization. We've been around many years supporting the education market with our tools and custom solutions. We work with millions of students and hundreds of institutions around the globe to support teaching and learning needs. It's really all we do is support that teaching and learning market. So we create tools and resources that enhance and extend your learning management system. In most of your cases, since you're here, it's Schoology, but we also work with many other LMS providers out there. The products that we're going to talk about today are here on the screen. We're going to start with Atomic Assessments and show you why you might need that beyond the assessment capability in Schoology. Same with what we call our social learning suite, which are Atomic Polls, Atomic Discussions, and Atomic Journals. We'll show you how those can integrate and enhance the social interaction that you have in your courses. Beyond that, we work a lot with the learning management systems out there to create custom tools, dashboards, and things like that. So if you have custom needs that aren't necessarily covered by some of these products, we'd be happy to speak with you on some options. All right, I'll be showing you or talking to you a little bit about each one of these products. Then we'll go into our Schoology interface and show you around and how they integrate in your learning environment. So we'll go down the list here. We'll start with Atomic Assessments. So Atomic Assessments is an assessment tool that extends the assessment capability that you have in Schoology to allow you to create formative and summative assessments inside of Schoology. A number of reasons why Schoology users adopt Atomic Assessments beyond their existing quizzing capability in Schoology is many of the different question types that we offer. So beyond traditional item types like multiple choice, true, false, things like that, there's many institutions, schools, programs that need more and different types of varied assessments to create really some great level assessments for their students. You also may be interested in developing adaptive assessments. All of those things are possible with Atomic Assessments. In addition to that, you can item bank all of your items to be able to reuse those year over year, class over class. You can tag those to your own standards and taxonomies to make sure that you're delivering the items that are useful for your students in that particular class. You get lots of data and psychometrics with the product as well, so you can constantly evaluate what you're doing and ensure that it's meeting the standards and learning objectives that you have. Lots of assessment security and accommodations, so you're able to provide accommodations to individual students or particular parts of your classroom to give them the support and help that they need. And as I mentioned off the top, this can be integrated for both formative and summative assessment. So some really interesting ideas to weave in assessment throughout your courses and classes. Let's jump out to Schoology here and take a look at Atomic Assessments. So I've created a Schoology course here. Yours may look much more put together and beautiful, but I've got an interface here with Schoology where we've got some of our tools laid out. And I've got them separated in folders. To introduce the products, I'm going to first view this as a student. So you can see I'm kind of in a preview mode here as a student. So let's say this was my course and I was coming in and I needed to complete some assessments. Well, I have a folder here as my instructor does, my teacher does, where I have some different assessments laid out. And then I have some different content pages laid out where I can get introduced to learning material throughout this particular class session. So the first thing I may do is review some content that my instructor has given me. So I have a page on cell structure. And if you're familiar with the content pages inside of Schoology, it's just your ability to author individual content pages, pull in material that you have, links to things to give the student the information that they need. Well, I've done that here in kind of a paragraph form. And then alongside that, I have embedded an atomic assessment. So this would be an example of a formative assessment that allows your students to get a self-check on how well they understand a particular concept. So you can deliver that right within the Schoology page here. This happens to be a hotspot item that my teacher has created. And you can see I've got 3 unique questions here that I can test my knowledge of. And you might give them check answer buttons to allow them to get immediate feedback. So as they're learning, you have the opportunity, I have the opportunity as a student to understand how I'm progressing. I may have some very different question types, type out different answers depending on what that item type is that my instructor created, drag and drop kind of ranking style questions, whatever that might be. And then when I'm done with that attempt, I, as a student, can go and review that attempt to look at how I've done overall in this particular kind of formative assessment. Once I'm done with that, I can continue down the page and continue my learning. So it just gives me an opportunity to really test my knowledge and make sure that I understand, what I'm doing. Maybe after that point in time, later on in the class term, I then have more of a summative assessment that my instructor has given me. And in that case, maybe it's in the assessments folder that's made available to me at that time, and I can take those items. So you can see these items, as opposed to be embedded inside of a Schoology page, are their own discrete item types or own discrete exams. And if I launch this, it launches out into the assessment player. So this is an opportunity to take more of a summative exam. So this can be timed, this can be proctored, this can have certain accommodations, as we've mentioned. So this is my self-contained exam that is 20 some questions that I've got to take at the end of some class period. I can make this full screen either in our player or in the Schoology interface, and we'll do that just to capture some additional real estate here. You can see this is that same formative assessment question that I used before that I might bring back for the summative. But just as an example, some of the different question types will flow through. This is a drag and drop or a ranking style. So the great thing about these is that you can create these from any image that you have, whether that's in the internet or some image that you have on your desktop. You can just create these drag and drop handles and locations to test your students on different concepts that you have. A lot of institutions like the kind of multi-column format to be able to deliver multiple tabs of information to students and then test them over that content directly on the screen where they're able to review and move back to the content. STEM and mathematics is well accomplished inside of Atomic Assessments. So you've got lots of different tools to be able to deliver mathematics and other STEM type subjects, and even allow your students to respond appropriately to that level of mathematics. You can embed different support features like hints or check answer buttons, depending on the feedback that you want to give students for this type of exam that you're delivering. We have different tools like image annotation items, so you can create any, provide any image to students and then allow them to annotate on top of that image to deliver different types of testing. You can see some different drag and drop type problems that we have here, whether those are numbers or images inside of the drag boxes. You really have that capability to be flexible with the types of learning environment that you're giving the students. There's a number of different features on the right-hand side that are all customizable. So if your student needs accessibility accommodations for color, font size, being able to zoom in and out, they can do that themselves right within the exam. If they need a calculator, you can embed a calculator within the problem to allow them to access that. There's also other exam taking tools. So if they want to have a sticky note to capture some notes or some different things that are available just in the exam period, they can do that. You can either allow them to annotate on the screen. So if maybe they want to cross certain items out or do some mathematics on the screen, they can do that. And that's really just a scratch pad for them. On the back end, when you as a teacher review that, you can see the annotations and things that they made to evaluate that if you'd like. So this gives you some different insights into the type of assessment capabilities that we have. At this point, I'll back out and we'll go in more from the instructor's perspective to show you what that experience is like for the instructor. So from that perspective, I'm now in as a teacher instructor, and I'm able to both provide exams to my students as well as evaluate how my students have done. So if I can go into that assessment that we just looked at, you can see in the teacher view now, I've got a few different options here. So I've got some reporting capabilities and some setting capabilities here. So when I first deliver this exam, I have the opportunity to set that exam up. I can have this grow directly to my Schoology gradebook for a particular amount of points possible. I can give accommodations to individual students. So I might assign it to everyone, but I might give a particular amount of attempts or additional times to individual students. And then I have quite a few other settings that I can do. I can pull random questions from a pool of mine. I can proctor this particular exam. I can do different things that allow me the support and capability that I need. After the exam is over, you can access detailed reporting to give you information about how students have performed. So I don't have much data in these exams, but you can see that you'd have a list of all of your students and look at the performance that they've had on this particular exam. You can look at individual responses. So if you'd like to know how your questions are performing and which students are responding in which ways, you can see detailed information about that. You can look at all of your students on one map here and see how they performed across time on all of the different items that you have delivered them. And then you can look at individual item analysis. So if you'd like to understand how items are performing related to your learning objectives or other taxonomies, you can see that information. So you can view that right inside Schoology, or you can always download that information to a CSV or a spreadsheet form and combine it with other analytics that you have. But as I mentioned, all of those results will flow straight to the gradebook if you'd like. You have that option to deliver that. And then same within that particular the particular area that I was at where I was inside a particular page. So if I go back to that area inside of that content page, even if I'm only using this as a formative assessment option, I still get reporting. So if I don't want to take a grade, I don't want to have this go to the gradebook because it's just a practice item for the students, I still get that detailed information, those detailed reports. So it still allows me to really check and understand how my students are progressing and whether or not they know the material going in, or if I have to spend additional time on a particular concept or topic. So it gives you a lot of insight into your learners. And really adding this to a page is super easy for you as an instructor. So if you're familiar with Schoology functionality, you can easily edit a page, identify anywhere in that page that you want to add a learning material to or an assessment to. You could use the insert content feature in Schoology. And then once we're installed, you find our tool, which in this case, we're looking at atomic assessments. You can build an item directly from here. We won't spend too much time on the item development process, but we'd love to speak to you about how easy that is through some of these templates. I have a number of existing items that I've built previously, which you can see here in my item bank. And then I can easily insert those items directly inside of the page and then save those changes. And those will launch directly inside of the page for you. And then you have the opportunity to deliver those to students. So really easy to not only build content, which we haven't covered too much, but also embed that content directly inside of your page. Similarly, if you want to lay out a summative assessment, it works the very same way. You have that opportunity to add content directly from a Schoology menu and lay out these exams on your module area for your students to take. Okay, I'll pause there as we transition to some of our social learning tools, but I'll just check with Lauren to see if there's any questions at this time.
No questions in the chat, but feel free to drop them in if you have any questions along the way.
Thanks, Lauren. All right, we'll proceed on to our social learning tools. So we have a suite of tools. They're all three of these are individual products, but they're opportunities to use these together or separately to deliver some of the social engagement that you might be looking for. So clearly we recognize that Schoology has a number of these tools, but these are really purpose-built for interaction and data and threaded inside of the learning content that you want students to engage in. So atomic polls, they all are exactly like they sound. Atomic polls are a polling capability, but it gives you many more poll types than the Schoology poll capability does, as well as those real-time insights and data, much like we showed you with atomic assessments. Similarly, atomic journals, these are a purpose-built journal tool to allow you to embed journal prompts across your course. You can do so within those Schoology pages or at the beginning of courses in your module items. And discussions, unlike Schoology discussions, these are threaded, scaffolded, and structured directly inside of the learning content and allow you to engage learners right within the learning material that they're presently in. So let's go ahead and jump out to Schoology again and take a look at these 3 tools and how you might be able to weave these into your course. So again, I'm inside the same area in Schoology, and I'll go back and view the course again as my student here, my student view. And so we can look at how that student experience is as I'm flowing through the course. Again, I've got my same folders here and I've got content pages. So in this case, I've got an example of this page on Abraham Lincoln that may not have much interaction. So this is a page of learning material that delivers the content that you want students to understand. And that's fine and good, but there's opportunity to maybe engage the students a little bit more, understand where they're at, get them to describe their understanding of his presidency, some of his accomplishments, and move forward in that way. So I'll just jump back and we'll look at this page, which is the exact same content, but embedded with some of our social learning tools. So in this case, the content is introduced, and then maybe halfway through that learning content, I can engage the students in a discussion. So this is Atomic Discussions you see here, and this is an opportunity to thread a discussion directly inside of the learning content. So the student begins to learn about something, you present a prompt to them, a topic, and then have them discuss. And you can see I have a number of different discussions from different students here that I've provided. And me as this particular student, I can go in and provide my own response. You can see I have a little bit of an editor here. I can embed images in the same way that some of these students have just for fun. I can put GIFs and other things like that inside of the posts as well to allow to have fun with some of this social interaction that you're doing inside of the course. So again, as opposed to having the discussion happen somewhere isolated outside of the learning content, you can bring this discussion right within that learning material. Further on down the page, I might start a journal article or a journal prompt. So this journal prompt allows the student to journal their thoughts. And you might have many different journal prompts throughout your course for them to collect their thoughts as they continue to learn more and more about this particular topic. It allows me to journal my thoughts. As the instructor, I can choose whether I want that to be visible just to me as the teacher, so a teacher to one student interaction, or I can even make that anonymous. So it's just up to the student to have that conversation and that learning process with themselves. What's great too is as a student, I can download this journal. So maybe at the end of the class, I can take some of this information with me. So I can download that into PDF, which I've done here. And you can see that this information that I've put, this was the journal entry that I've added here with some imagery that I've added as well are here. It's also a good view that as a student, I haven't participated in some of the other journal prompts throughout the course. So it's a good reminder for me to go back and participate in those activities as well. And then finally, we have atomic polls. So there's different ways to utilize atomic polls, but you can utilize those in different fashion. I have a course evaluation poll, which I'll show you here in a minute. But if I step back to that cell page that we looked at first, I have a poll at the end of this. So again, you can embed that directly in the learning content. And you can have different types of polls, whether those are Likert styles, free answer, multiple answer choice, or in this case, just a single answer poll. So I was introducing concepts about cells, and then I'm asked to explain or say what part of the cell is responsible. So I think maybe it's mitochondria, and I'm asked to require some or asked to put some feedback. And maybe as a student, I'm not quite sure. But again, this is an opportunity, a formative opportunity to see. And then I see some of my other fellow students and how they voted and what their comments were. So, it starts to give that community type feel, that social learning capability to collaborate with the rest of my classmates. And then maybe at the end of your class or course or whatever it might be, you might have a course evaluation. And again, as a student, I can do that. And just in this polls capability, this might be a Likert type poll, and I can deliver that feedback. So then as an instructor or as a teacher, I get that immediate feedback in the content, let's say. So if I go back to that cell page and I scroll down to where I had that poll embedded, you can see I can see as an instructor exactly how my students have voted and evaluated this poll. So I've got a number of different comments here that I can understand. I can see the results from all of my students. And then I can even look at, do I have students who haven't voted? So I can look at the participation in my course. And if I know some students haven't voted, or those who have, I can reach out to them and get them to respond to that particular poll again. So you've got a lot of different ways in order to get that immediate feedback from your students and really inspire some of that collaboration that you might be looking for. You've got data, as I mentioned, you can download this data as well and take it with you so you have information that you can evaluate for a grade or whatever purpose that you might want there. So that is a little bit about our social tools. Again, very easy to incorporate these tools throughout your course, just like we showed you in Atomic Assessments. If I go to, let's just go to this page that doesn't have much interaction today. If I edit that page, just like we did with assessments, find anywhere I want to drop an item, and then use the insert content. And again, once we have these different tools inside of your Schoology environment, you'd be able to simply grab those quickly. And then it gives you the opportunity to add that particular activity that you want. So this is Atomic Polls, and you can see you have the opportunity to create different types of polls directly inside of your course. So really pretty simple to add that tool directly to it, whether it's a poll, whether it's a journal. You're simply adding an activity name and a journal prompt, and then you're deciding on whether it's available to just you and that student or to all of to just an anonymous type situation. Same with discussions. You're really just adding an activity name and then a discussion prompt, making some choices about how the responses are delivered and allowing you to like or dislike the poll for different students or discussion, and then be able to embed that directly inside of the page. So lots of great tools and resources for you to enhance the engagement and or assessment in your course, but really would be interested in your feedback, and we'd love to meet with you anymore directly.